here at the Town Hall Chambers. Elaine, could you take a roll?
Josh Barrett.
Here.
Jessica Rubery. Here. Joe Gardosset.
Here.
Anthony Petracca.
Here.
Joe DiMartino.
Here. Item 1, approval of the minutes from the July 1st meeting. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes. Second.
Okay. Any discussion? No? Okay, let's vote. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Item 2, public informational meeting for Nottingham Drive condominiums. Applicant is Atlantic Capital Real Estate, Inc., location Nottingham Drive, assessors plat 12-1, lot 31, residential R10 zone, 21.79 acres, and engineering is Deprete Engineering. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the West Warwick Planning Board. For the record, my name is Attorney K. Joseph Shikachi, and I represent the applicant in this project before you this evening. I have several experts with me, and my first one will be Mr. Kevin Demers, and he's setting up this overall site plan, but I'd like to give the board a brief overview. This is a project that we've been talking to and working with the town for approximately 6 months. We actually did have a neighborhood meeting. We have met with some of the direct abutters to the property, and I have a petition signed by approximately 24 of them. These are people who abut the property in favor of the petition, and I'd like to introduce that. And I have a plat map identifying those that abut the site that are in favor of it. And the petition is exhibit number 1. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are requesting this evening master plan approval to take us to the next level, which is the zoning board. And and as you know, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, master plan approval is a conceptual approval. So we're proposing this evening of this 21-acre parcel to use approximately 5 acres of the parcel for 24 condominiums, 12 duplex-style condominiums. These condominiums will range in price between $275,000 and $300,000. They will be age restricted, and that's very important. So there'll be only people can buy them of 55 and older. We've done that for a couple of reasons: to limit the impact on the school system, but also to limit the impact in general on the area and the traffic. Typically, people who buy these condominiums have a second home in a warm weather climate, and they spend their winters in Florida, Arizona, North Carolina. We've worked hard to come up with a nice site plan. I will have first introduced Kevin Demers from Deprete Engineering to take us through the plan. As you know, it's conceptual, so a lot of the engineering is not completed, but it will obviously be zero net runoff. The law requires, and we will obviously comply, that no runoff into any of the abutting property whatsoever. There'll be one entrance in, one entrance out. We would leave the rest of the parcel open space. We would give the abutters, and you can see that on that plan around there, who abut the property, a parcel of land behind each of their homes as a private buffer that they could use for tennis court, a play yard, a swimming pool, or just a natural buffer. I'd like to call Mr. Kevin Demers from Deprete Engineering.
Thank you, Joe. My name is Kevin Demers from Deprete Engineering. I'm a senior project engineer working with Deprete for approximately 19 years. Just to go through...
Raise your hand.
Yes,
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Continue.
Yes. To go through the general existing conditions first, the site's on Assessor's Plat 12-1, Lot 31. It's approximately 21.8 acres. The site is located at the existing terminus of Nottingham Drive, just south of the intersection with Crossbow Lane. The topography through the site varies from around 260 at the lowest point to 320 at the highest point in the southeast property corner. The site is mainly wooded. There are a few cleared areas in the northeast portion of the site. There's numerous wetlands, as Joe had mentioned. There's some forested wetlands within the interior of the site with a large wooded swamp wetland, which is greater than 3 acres. The large wetland has jurisdictional buffers, and the forested isolated wetlands do not have regulated buffers. Outside the hydric wetland soils present in the wetlands, soil types are Bridgehampton, Charlton, Canton, Charlton, Merrimack, Sandy Loam, which are all fairly well-draining soils. As far as the zoning of the area, surrounding the site to the north, to the west, and to the northeast, the sites were zoned R10, as well as this site is zoned R10. The zoning is business park to the southeast of the site and south of the site. The calculated allowable density, if you remove the unusable area of approximately 10 acres from the site, you're left with having a suitable area for 50 single-family residences or 101 duplex residences, as being requested here. We're proposing only 24 units. And to determine I'll show the yield plan quickly, but determining, we had a yield plan layout. We drew an extension of the public right-of-way and found we could accommodate approximately 20 single-family homes scattered throughout the site. There would be one lot accessing from Misty Oaks Court to the west. And apart from that, we'd be accessing from the proposed rights-of-way. To go over the proposed site layout, there are, again, 12 buildings with 24 duplex units proposed. Units will be age-restricted, as Joe had mentioned. There will be approximately 1,000-foot common driveway, 24 feet wide, with no sidewalk. It would be private. It wouldn't require town maintenance. There will be a cul-de-sac terminus, which we're coordinating with the fire department to allow for full truck turning movements. Public water and sewer are proposed, and there will be likewise at the preliminary plan stage. We'll review the utilities with Kent County Water and West Warwick Sewer Authority, respectively. Stormwater management, we've roughed out a few areas, one closer to the entrance to the site on the north end of the parcel, and one closer to the cul-de-sac area on the south end. As part of the preliminary plan stage, prior to asking for approval at preliminary plan stage, we'll submit to Rhode Island DEM for a freshwater wetlands insignificant alteration permit. To make sure we meet the 10 minimum standards they require. Soil erosion sediment control will be a key feature, as well as infiltration, low impact development practices in advance of runoff mitigation practices. And I think that covers most of what I had. As Mr. Scarci mentioned, we're proposing to allow for a buffer. We're proposing to deed those 13 lots as an extension of the backyards, again, to act as a buffer, to act as whatever recreational opportunities for the abutting homeowners. And again, that was to address an item brought up at the neighborhood meeting as far as having, developing on this one lot. Obviously people are concerned about future development, and this is to allow for a further backyard buffer to our butters. If you have any questions, that's fine, or we can bring up the next person.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Demers at this time, or maybe later?
Just a quick question. Why is the proposed drainage basin look like dumbbells with two legs interconnected? Is there a rationale for that?
That was a conceptual drawing in order to avoid wetlands impacts. There is a nearby wetland, which we will obviously shape the best management practice. It's conceptual, so we may find it's better to do a larger basin on one side or the other as opposed to that shape.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, Mr. Lombardo was unable to be here tonight, but I have his reports. I'd just like to introduce them. I will just tell you the one highlight for the board's consideration, and you can welcome to put as much credibility and weight on it as if you would, but the proposal of 24 age-restricted condominiums would be a net benefit for the town, an annual tax revenue of $114,000. That benefit is significant to the town. If you go with single-family homes, it drops considerably because they tend to put children in the school system. I'd like to call up Mr. Paul Bannon, who's prepared a report, and he's a traffic expert. Thank you.
So your study's based upon the assumption of school children, so you.
Yes.
So does he have all this, I haven't read over the report, but does he have all the statistics in there, like, are you averaging 2 children per home, like it's? I'm
Yes.
just trying to get the comparison, because
It's in there, and I thought he would be here, but I found out today he wasn't. I believe it's 2.2 kids in each home. So you can look at the report, and I trust your judgment, Mr. Barrett, to put whatever credibility or weight you want on it. But yeah, my answer is yes, and the short version is yes. He did a thorough analysis, and I will stand behind Mr. Lombardo's work, because I've done that many times in the
I want
past.
to make sure that he's specified how many children per home. And
I believe it's 2.2, maybe 2.3.
2.3.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Bannon, thank you. And Mr. Bannon has appeared before this board as an expert.
He is an expert. Your name, address,
Paul Bannon, 53rd Street, Barrington, Rhode Island.
do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, begin.
We were retained to complete a traffic study for this project. As part of that study, we worked with the site engineer to review the points of access and egress to the property to ensure that safe and adequate access is provided. We conducted numerous site visits various times of the day, days of the week to observe traffic operations. We conducted traffic counts at the main intersections, providing access to the neighborhood. We obtained traffic crash data from the local police department to determine if there were any safety concerns in the project area. And we estimated the number of trips that would be generated by this land use in size, and then we assessed the safety and operations of the existing and future conditions. As Kevin had indicated, Nottingham Drive will provide the primary access to the property. It's approximately 1,900 feet in length, extending from Greenbush to the subject property. It operates as a collector road within the neighborhood because it does intersect with Greenbush Ave. So it does have a higher volume within the neighborhood itself versus the number of homes that are along its length. The road is approximately 28 feet wide. It's undelineated. The neighborhood itself is consistent in cross-section of roads, 28 feet, curbing, no sidewalks. The roadway is within the neighborhood are posted at 20 miles an hour. Greenbush Road, that's a urban collector roadway extending between New London Turnpike and Greenwich Ave. It provides an east-west link to these higher-order roadways from the neighborhood. We looked at safety at the main intersection of Greenbush and Nottingham Drive to assess if adequate site distances are available, and based on the roadway geometries, there's sufficient site distances in both directions for safe access and egress. The crash data from the local police confirms that there were no crashes at that location within the 3-year study period. We looked at the internal intersections relative to control. There are 2 intersections along Nottingham Drive, one with Maid Marian and one with Crossbow. They're skewed in nature, and they have unconventional control where, you know, you have through street that is stop controlled in one direction, not stop controlled in the other. One has a yield control and stop control on one, with none on the other. So we looked at that and made recommendations on all-way stops at these locations, which would clear up the confusion that the geometry and the conflicting signs generate. Yes.
I have some brief questions for Mr. Bannon. Just, Mr. Bannon, in my hand are copies of 2 reports you prepared, is that correct?
That's correct.
And they were prepared how, and do these reports accurately reflect your opinions of this traffic from this property? And I'd like to introduce them as expeditiously. Thank you.
Yes, the original traffic study was prepared approximately a year ago when we started the process. We had a neighborhood meeting where we heard neighbors' concerns. So we prepared a supplemental study to show the land use difference of single-family homes versus condominiums. So we did just a trip generation analysis to show that the yield plan, 20 units, would result in X amount of traffic, and the proposed condominiums would result in Y. The result of that was the number of condominium units results in less traffic than the number of homes that would have, single-family homes that would,
That's a lot.
yeah.
Okay.
Just one brief question for Mr. Bannon, a few questions, and I'll be all done with him. Mr. Bannon, currently, right now, what is the level of service on that street in front of the property?
There's a very low volume of traffic along the Nottingham Drive and Green Bush Road, and when we look at impacts and operations, we look at the worst-case condition, which would be the AM and PM peak periods. So we counted during those periods, and based on the numbers that go through the intersection, existing conditions, they operate at a level of service A, and under future conditions, it would continue to be that.
So the proposal today, the service on Nottingham Drive is a level service A, is that correct?
Correct.
And that's the best service?
Correct.
And if these 12-unit age-restricted, 24-unit, 12-building age-restricted units go in, it would have the same level of service A, is that correct?
Correct. There would be no degradation in operations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question?
So, looking at the report, you did your traffic volumes on the corner of Greenbush intersection and Nottingham Drive. And it just, the numbers just don't seem right during the peak school. When you started in September of 2018.
Correct.
And maybe, I don't think what my concern is with the school traffic, and I guess you'd capture the school traffic maybe between 7 and 8:45, and you came back at 4:45 and 5:45. But actually, the school, I believe the school gets out a lot earlier.
Probably around 3.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that these numbers here reflected correctly, because I don't, I'm
Yeah,
not.
these would be the worst-case conditions. School traffic doesn't affect the PM peak, which would be the higher volume on Greenbush because of the commuter
Okay, so
period.
you're talking about the school
Right, so
traffic, okay.
people coming out of the neighborhood is minimal during the
So the
school.
morning would be the biggest concern.
Correct,
what we have.
combination of all, yes.
All right, did we have any data collected, like, at the school or around the school, where in and out of that area?
No, I did not,
Okay.
specific to the school.
Okay. All right, that's the only thing, that makes sense from there.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call Mr. Peter Scotti as an expert in the field of real estate valuations. I believe Mr. Peter Scotti Mr. Scotti's performed as an expert in many municipalities, and I would offer him as an expert here as well.
My TV is attached to that show. Let me get it for you.
Name, address?
Peter M. Scotti, S-C-O-T-T-I, 403 South Main Street, Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Scotti, did you prepare this report based on valuations for the proposed property?
I did.
In the surrounding area? I would ask that this be introduced as the next exhibit, please. And I have copies for every member.
I have known of Mr. Scotty for a long time, and I recommend that we accept him as an expert witness. Can I have a motion for that?
I move that motion.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor of accepting Mr. Scotty as an expert witness?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scotty, I'll just very briefly tell the board how you prepared your report and the conclusions and finding of if this project were to be approved, ultimately here and then on to the zoning board, would there be any change of value, and would it negatively impact any of the surrounding areas' property values?
Sure. My job was very simple, and that was to do two things. One was to determine what values, what the market value in the neighborhood, Greenbush neighborhood in general were, and specifically what values could be expected for the proposed 24-unit condominiums. So to that end, we surveyed sales in the 0.5 to 5 mile radius of the Greenbush neighborhood. It's all laid out in that report. And then we kind of brought it down right into the neighborhood and essentially relied as far as neighborhood values on the 0.5 to 1 mile radius. And basically what we found is that values in that neighborhood are running about $250,000 to $275,000. Largely raised ranches, and colonials, well-kept, nice neighborhood, nicely done. And if you look at the end of my report, go right to the very end, you'll see a whole bunch of multiple listing sales right from that neighborhood. Now, so that was the easy part of the job. A little more difficult was to determine what the condominiums would sell for. So to that end, we did the same basic survey, 0.5 to 5 mile radius, starting in January 1, 2018, running to the current. And we found a kind of an array of values, et cetera. But most of those values reflected condominiums that had been built 10, 15, 20 years ago. So we looked at that. We thought about the cost of construction. We thought about the gated about the age-restricted community. And we then kind of drilled down a little bit more and started looking at newer condo unit values. And basically what we found was that those units are going to be going off, have been going off at about $225 a square foot. So what that puts you to is about $275,000 to $300,000 for these units. So basically, the condo units that are proposed are right in line as far as whole value goes with surrounding properties. So there really should be no diminution whatsoever to surrounding property values. I mean, it's consistent. In fact, new condominium units, age restricted, I think it may pump that neighborhood up a little bit, but it's hard to know until they're up. Certainly, it's not going to have a negative effect.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Scotty?
We keep using age restricted, what are they, are we talking 55 and over?
Yes.
Community.
55
and over.
restricted, yeah, 55 and over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes our presentation for this evening. I do have one other witness here, but he's Kevin Alverson. He's a landscape architect. I'm not planning on having him testify because we don't have a plan yet, but he wanted to come to hear whatever the input was from the neighborhood and from the board, and if there was anything in particular, a certain amount of trees, a certain landscaping, we would incorporate that hopefully in the next level.
In the next level. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Attorney Sikachi, you are aware that ultimately zoning has to approve this,
Yes.
and then you come back here. But
I understand this is
and what
the,
we do tonight
is a
to make
concept.
a recommendation to zoning, either favorable or unfavorable, and that they are free to ignore our recommendation.
I'm,
Or to accept it, okay?
I'm well aware of that, and
Well put.
it happens both in the
Yeah.
positive and the negative way,
Yes, just-
both times.
But the ultimate and most important decision is the one that the zoning board is gonna make. We are gonna recommend to the zoning board, either favorably or unfavorably after tonight's hearing. And then, then you gotta go to zoning.
I understand, and I will tell, and I appreciate that, and I will tell you that at the next zoning board, if we get there, or when we get there, we'll have these plans developed yet some more.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you come back after that,
And be-
assuming the zoning board approves it, then when you come back, that's when we'll get the details.
Yeah, we'll have all the Ts crossed and all the Is dotted.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there anyone in the audience who wants to speak? Wait, before you come up, speak in favor of this application? Step forward. We're going to do the ones in favor first, then we're going to do the ones that are opposed. Okay. Name, address,
Steve Harvin, 10 Crossville Lane,
raise your
West
hand.
Warwick.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
The whole truth, nothing but
Okay.
the truth.
Okay, go ahead. What do you have to say?
Been living there,
Yeah.
10 Crossville, for 17 years now. Moved in when I was young, raised our kids there. Actually, with the joy of the whole neighborhood, of young kids growing up, driving,
Yep.
speeding through the neighborhood. There are little complaints now, but it is nothing what we had when I moved in. I don't even know how to say it, but me and my kids rolling the ball out in the street to watch these cars lock up. I mean, it was a drag strip. Today, they're like, oh, people speed. I tell the people in the neighborhood, it's nothing what it was when I moved in. Growing old in the neighborhood, the other people around me, an older crowd. To me, to make a new development behind me with younger people, that whole ramped up again, I don't know if I could deal with it again. I like how it is now. We're all getting older. We have our grandkids. I really don't know how to
Okay.
explain what we went through the neighborhood. We have houses sold, new people moved in, they're younger. They're all like, oh, yeah, no, we need more house. But being me, not too much money, buying my house, probably gonna die there. But a lot of people in the neighborhood are getting old. And going around and asking people to sign something and to hold what we have in West Warwick. If you let more younger people in, would force a lot of us out. When I bought my house, they always said, oh, it's wetlands, I bought this. Nobody would ever build behind you. You can use the land. I mean, if you come to my house, the guy who owned it last, the school teacher, I can't think of his name, he said, Steve, no problem. I don't care if you, I live right over the stream. You put it in a pipe. You ran it through my backyard. I never thought you could put a stream in a pipe. Very confused coming from Johnston. You couldn't touch nothing wetlands. I butted the reservoir. You couldn't put nothing in a pipe. There was a stream, I don't know what happened back then, but you let them put it in a pipe, run it across the road. It's very disturbing. So now you want to put a house, but what happens if you have to dig up that pipe?
Yeah.
I'm very
Okay, so.
confused.
You came up to speak in favor of this
We're
development.
confused
I'm trying to,
I'm,
now
I'm,
we're
I'm
We're
very,
confused,
Yes.
so-
oh,
Okay.
I'm very in favor of
Of
putting condos up in the back,
condos up, okay. all
because
right.
it goes around the pipe.
Right, okay.
It puts you up in the back.
Okay.
You're not disturbing the wetlands, what is all behind us.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the print, it's all, I'm confused this is even an issue.
Okay, okay, all right.
It's, you
Great.
know what I mean?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
It's very confused for me.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank
But
you.
living there for 17 years,
Okay.
the traffic's been slower, and we don't want no more younger kids to just speed through our neighborhood.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wants to speak in favor of this development? Okay,
Couple of questions,
okay,
not necessarily for or against it.
okay.
Couple of questions from the developers.
Your name and address, please?
My name is Ralph Salomonese, and I live at 660 East Greenwich Avenue, West Warwick.
Okay, raise your hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Uh,
Go ahead.
One of my questions had to do with the extra parking spaces. It says here that besides the parking spaces that belong to individual units, that additional parking spaces will be assigned to visitors. About how many of those parking spaces will there be? Any information on that?
Parking
So
spaces
many
for the
additional visitors parking space for each unit, or for, or how is that?
Okay. Okay.
Answer. We haven't finalized the number of parking spaces on the plan as of yet, but that's one of the conditions of approval is to provide the additional parking. Therefore, on our next plan set, we will be, at the preliminary plan stage, we will be providing additional visitor parking spaces.
Kevin, is there did I see there was a garage in these units?
Yes,
Garage.
yes,
Okay.
garage with room for parking in front, and then we would have additional parking spaces.
Mr. Chairman, I believe he's talking about a stipulation that is recommended from the planning office. The requirement for multifamily is 2 spaces per unit. However, traditionally in the town of West Warwick, boards and commissions have asked for additional parking to accommodate guests
Yep.
that might visit. So it could be anywhere between an additional half space to a full space. So you'd have 2.5 to 3 spaces per unit.
We will provide at least 20 spots. There's more than adequate land around us, so we'll have at least 20 guest parking
20
spots.
additional to
Yeah.
the 2 per unit.
Yes, there'll
That's
be
on- that's
at
on the
least
plan.
20 additional spots at a minimum.
Thank you.
So if there's parking on the street, it still doesn't restrict the fire
There would
department?
be no parking allowed on the street. They would have to,
They'd have a
they would have
separate
to
parking area.
have parking spaces off of
Okay.
the road.
Great.
The road is 24 feet wide. It would not accommodate
It's not gonna
on-street
come,
parking.
but this road's gonna become a public road.
No, it's going to be a
No.
private
Private
road.
road.
Private road.
So.
Will the
who polices-
garages be one-car garage or two-car garage?
I think they're 1 car.
Some of them will be 1, and some of them will be 2. We don't know the exact mix yet, but there'll be more than, we're required to provide 2 parking spaces per unit. If we can, we'd love to put 2 garages. Some of them will be 1, some of them will be 2, but we'll have at least 2 spots, parking spots on the private road, and we'll have additional guest parking as well.
And the size of the units, generally, what would they, how many bedrooms and how many square feet to each unit?
They're going to be 2 bedrooms units, and they're going to be about 1,300 square feet. Some will be a little bit more, some will be a little bit less, but around 1,300 square feet, 2 bedrooms.
One or 2 baths?
2 baths, it'll be 2 baths. If you want to buy one, we'll give you a good deal.
The other question is, you mentioned age restricted.
Yeah, you're going to be too young. You're too young to be able to buy one of those.
That's okay. But age restricted, 55 and over. But you also mentioned children who can live there.
Children.
it's gotta be 55 and over to buy,
That's correct.
but how about people living there?
Yeah, the people who will purchase will have to be 55 and older. Now, if somebody had a situation where they had a grandchild with them, they wouldn't be precluded. The reason why we restrict it is so that if that situation happens, it'd be very few. Maybe one or two may have a child, but it's not gonna, we can't prohibit, it's discriminatory. You can't say, I don't want, you can't live here if you have a grandson or a
Or
granddaughter.
a child, doesn't
Yeah,
have to be
exactly.
grandchild. It could
Whatever.
be-
So there
it
could
It could be two of your own.
Exactly. It could be. It could be children who are in their 20s, 30s, or 40s, too.
Okay, all right,
Or 10 years old,
okay,
15 years old.
okay. Did you get all your questions asked?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, anyone else that wants to speak in favor of this proposal? Doesn't look like it. How about anyone interested to speak in opposition to? Okay.
We start, Jen, can we, if, we could have like 50 people come up and say the same thing? So I was wondering if we could, if somebody says something that the same guy's coming up.
I'm not gonna get into the merits, because I know I'm an attorney.
Yeah.
I'm the former state representative for the area, and I am a resident of the Greenbush area. I live at 59 Hathaway Drive. My name is Richard Fleury. But I'm here, I understand,
Raise your hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Now, I'm here, again, as I told you, in the capacity as a resident and former state representative. I'm concerned about what's going on in our area. Probably most of those concerns are better raised at the Board of Review, which I understand that's where it belongs.
Yep.
However, I'm here on a preliminary matter tonight, and this is where preliminary matters are handled. And I received these papers last night. I apologize for the lateness of the time, but I did, Mr. Crulo will tell you, he had a phone message from me today. We weren't able to hook up. I left it on his voicemail. I didn't leave him the reason for it, but I did ask him to call me back. And when I got this, I started to go through the paperwork that I had received for the application, scrutinizing it and taking a look at it with an eye towards determining the impact this was going to have on the Greenbush area, in particular the Nottingham Drive area. So the first thing you do when you have an application, you say, who's making the application, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look at the applicant here, it's the Atlantic, bear with me, Capital Real Estate, Inc. So I want to know who they are. So where do you go for that? It's a corporation. You go to the Secretary of State, and you look at the corporate database. Guess what? They don't exist. There is no Atlantic Real Estate. I use different formats, different names. I called the Secretary of State. I said, maybe they're a foreign corporation doing business in Rhode Island, licensed to do business, and I'm using the database in the wrong way. That was not the case. You do not have a proper application before you this evening. You cannot make a decision. If you make a recommendation, it is a frail, it's a fraught recommendation. They have not met the most basic, fundamental reason for an application, and that is that the applicant must make the application and the applicant must sign it. Somebody signed it, and they signed it on behalf of Atlantic Capital, but Atlantic Capital is, somebody signed it and somebody signed it on behalf of Atlantic Capital, and Atlantic Capital does not exist. I think they can correct it later on, most assuredly, they can probably correct it, but you cannot go forward on this tonight.
Thank you, Al.
So,
Okay. We should give him a chance to rebuttal.
Thank you.
and Joe, the
Applicant.
Attorney Fleury, a neighborhood member, basically went to where corporate records and did not find this corporation exists. And the question then in my mind is, can we actually act on this if the corporation in fact doesn't exist? And all we have is his testimony saying it doesn't exist, so I don't know.
Can I
Yes,
give
yes,
my
yes.
opinion respectfully? I know Richard, he's a friend, he's a good attorney, but I believe he's wrong in that analysis because you don't have to be an applicant, you can be an owner. And both people are on the application, they own the applicant. But I want to answer that issue. My client tells me that Atlantic Corporation is a Nevada Corporation. So I don't know if it's registered to do business here or not, but that is simply, if it's not, that's a minor oversight that can be corrected. And I don't believe for a recommendation that you need to have all of this stuff. Maybe for the, as he pointed out correctly, and as you did, Mr. Chairman, maybe before we go before the Board of Review, we do. But at this point, it's a recommendation. And even if he is correct that the corporation is not registered or it's not in good standing in Nevada, the fact that the owner also is part of the application can go forward. An applicant is just more information. It's not a requirement. You can have an owner go forward as well. And I would defer to your legal counsel. Ultimately, I know that's what you're going to do anyway, so thank you.
Okay, Mr. DeFiore, you have an
From walking in, I'm sorry I'm late. Unfortunately, the applicant is the applicant. And I think if it's not established as a person, we don't have an applicant. I would suggest, and I know it's gonna not make a lot of people happy, that the matter could be continued to date certain with the opportunity for them to establish that it is a valid corporation, and if it's an outstate, that it's registered to do business. I mean, I don't see, if it is a valid corporation, I think we would be creating a situation of incredible expense for a lot of people and a lot of extra work that they could come back next month in any event. And rather than having to go through all of the advertising and the notices and everything, that it be continued to a date certain. No, I wouldn't do anything.
At the advice of our attorney, we're going to continue this hearing till a date certain, which will be, presumably be our next meeting next month. Okay, and the date of that meeting is?
October 7th.
Till October 7th.
And I would also suggest that the applicant get in at least 10 days prior to the hearing, the
information.
information, you know, the verification that it is an existing corporation.
Right.
And if it is an out-of-state corporation,
That it-
that it is registered to do business in the state of Illinois.
Okay, okay.
My rationale behind that is that if the most you would do tonight is
Yep.
not hear it,
Right.
they would go through the whole trouble of notifying everybody again.
Yeah, so let's
And we're
just
back where
continue
we
this
start,
hearing, yeah.
was by continuing it,
Yep.
you save all of that problem.
All right, thank you.
But would they have to bring back would they have to bring back, I mean, it's probably a hefty bill here for having these guys be here. Would they have to bring everybody back to the table?
Yes.
Those here?
Yep, continuing, going to start all over again, I guess, on October 7th.
Yeah, the experts, the testimony will stand,
The testimony will
but there
stand,
will
okay.
be the opportunity for examination of the experts.
Okay, okay.
If I could be heard. As far as starting over again, I would think they have to. I don't think you have a proper application before you, and until it's 100% proper, it's got, the full hearing has to start. I would have gotten up early, but that's not your procedure. You gotta wait for who's the objectors to come second, and I waited my time. That's why I came up right away before everybody else got up. Okay? So I do think that we've got to hear it again. There are some specifics on, obviously, that I would like to, somebody, or myself, or somebody else will address, both on the traffic study and on the real estate evaluations that we think are flawed.
But they will be here.
Yeah, that's fine.
They'll be in.
I won't, I'm gonna be on vacation now.
I'm saying they will be here.
They'll be here.
For anyone there to question anything that was said tonight, instead of letting them say the same thing all over again.
I think you need to, I think it's important that you have them here, again, because there may be some questions that arise, and you can accept, I guess you can accept, you can do your own procedures. I'm not gonna tell you how to run your meeting, okay? I don't do that. I'm just telling you, I think what you've done tonight's a nullity.
The experts have to be here. They don't have to say again
What
what
they've
they
said
said tonight. It's on the record, and anybody there.
Your procedures,
who wants to question
I just like when people create records for appeal, but that's
Okay.
okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
You want to take
Is there a motion to continue this for a date certain tonight? Yeah,
Seconded.
okay. favor of that, any more conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the hearing is continued until next month, the October 7th planning board meeting. Thank you.
They were putting these in as
Joe, I completely forgot it was 6 o'clock. I gave all the others are 7 o'clock.
Okay. Will they clear out? All right.
Did you put this in front of me?
No, that's the process. Joe. That's extra stuff.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
There's all the exhibits.
I was marking exhibits, I see you submitting them. Yeah, I read it. They have 5 exhibits. I know that.
She'll give me
We can just cross-reference.
all my other meetings are at 7, and I just was coming here for 7. I've been out in the car, I'm talking to John.
You've been out there? Hear that? So he's been out in the car, I'm talking to John.
I thought it was 7 o'clock.
Attorney Bernero, I heard you were keeping our attorney away from the meeting. So,
That's my bedtime.
all right. Okay, item 3, public information meeting, June Car Plat. The applicant is Shoreline Properties. Do we know if they're a registered corporation in Rhode Island? They are. Okay. The location is 146 Cohasset Avenue and Carlson Circle, Assessors Plat 13, Lot 599, residential R8, land area 2.8 acres, number of lots 8, engineers Ocean State Planners. The applicant's requesting a master plan approval to subdivide an existing 2.8-acre parcel with an existing dwelling and baseball field playground to create 8 new lots. 1 lot with an existing dwelling with access from Cohasset Avenue and 7 new house lots on a new street with access from Carlson Circle and residential R8 zone.
Mr. Chairman, wait a minute, John. Mr. Chairman, I have marked as exhibits, number 1, the application, number 2, the Ocean State narrative of June 11, 2019, number 3, the abutters list, number 4, the radius map, number 5, the RAB traffic report of 8/12/19, and number 6, the 4-page site plan. Number 7, the green cards.
Attorney Bernero.
Again, John Bernero Jr., I'm an attorney with law offices at 1070 Main Street in Coventry. I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicant. I have with me Mr. Joe Catelli, who I know this board is familiar with. Mr. Catelli has done projects in the town and presently doing a project up on Pulaski Street for some condos, which his board has previously approved, zoning board approved, going back many years. Also have Richard Bizdera, the surveyor from Ocean State Planning. I will also be presenting the traffic study that we had Mr. Bannon do. He was on the first petition and on this one. And although it's not necessary at master plan stage, I have an engineer, Craig Carrigan, who will be just briefly addressing the future drainage on this project that would be necessary, obviously, at preliminary. As the application says, we have a Plat 13, Lot 599. It's about 2.8 acres of land, 122,000 square feet, plus or minus. It's in an R8 zone, and that R8 zone calls for each lot under your ordinance, the town ordinance and laws, to have 8,000 square feet of land, 80-foot frontage, 100-foot depth. Pretty much standard in the town. The biggest zone we have is 10,000. The smallest we have, I think, goes down to 6. So this is kind of in the middle. There's a house on Cohasset Avenue that's gonna remain on Cohasset Avenue, and we're gonna have a new road going in. That road meets all town standards in terms of length, width, and obviously the square footage of the houses lots that we're gonna be requesting. There are absolutely, positively no waivers being asked before this board whatsoever. We have public water through Kent County Water. Again, that certificate, like your ordinance says, will be delivered at the time of preliminary. The town sewers, the same thing. The design of that will be delivered at the preliminary hearing. As we all know, this is master plan. Master plan is pretty much a two-dimensional. We look at the paperwork. We don't look at the hills and valleys and drainage, but we'll address that there. It's a concept. It's an approval that allows us to go to DEM, that allows us to go to Kent County Water, and allows us to go to your sewer department for approval. There are areas on the plan that Mr. Becerra has prepared showing some drainage, and we understand and we know what the law and the charge is by this board, that we have a 0% runoff. We have to hold all our water. We're not gonna solve any problems, but we cannot and will not create any problems. Again, we have a traffic report. It was requested and we did it. So when you look at 7 lots, and I'm gonna assume there's 14 people in there, two per household. And if they left in a 3-hour period, that's 1 car for every 12.8 minutes. That's not a traffic problem. One of your members of the board here lives down Wakefield Street like I do. And I sat at my kitchen window this morning waiting for someone to show up who didn't. I was having my coffee and I'm counting the cars. I didn't get the 22 seconds that a car went by, never mind 12 minutes. But that being said, Mr. Bannon is here to review that. You have a report from your town planner. Your town planner has recommended approval of this project, that we've complied with all the comprehensive plan requirements, town ordinances, zoning regulations. We also have some TRC comments, which we are in receipt of, and those TRC comments are all agreeable to the applicant. That again, we address the drainage. Any homeowners association is gonna have to be approved by this board and your legal counsel. Again, water and sewer at the time of preliminary. Soil erosion plan, again, is gonna be at preliminary. Construction plans, again, at preliminary. There is a $2,500 section 17-21E, the fees in lieu for dedication and recreation. We have no problem with that, obviously. And there was a request to align the junction of the proposed new road, Juneport, with that of Carlson Circle for a 3-way T-type intersection. Mr. Bannon will address that. And again, we need a road opening permit, obviously. And again, these are all at preliminary and after. At this time, I'm going to call Mr. Bannon up, please.
State your name and profession.
Paul Bannon, civil engineer, address at 53rd Street, Barrington, Rhode Island. It's Bannon.
Raise your right hand. So tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
I would recommend the board accept him as an expert.
Thank you, Mr. Bannon. I disqualified him about 15 minutes
Qualified,
ago.
yeah.
He's been qualified a couple months ago.
Mr. Bannon, you prepared a report to Mr. Catelli at Shoreline Properties dated April 12, 2019.
Yes, we did a traffic safety assessment for this project.
And that has been filed and submitted as the applicant's, one of their exhibits?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Without holding up this whole process, going through the detail of this here, would you address to the board what 7 house lots is going to do in this area in terms of traffic safety, et cetera?
For this project, similar to the other project, we went through our procedures. For this type of project, we didn't do as extensive a study because, as Mr. Bernero had indicated, it's a very low density development where you would generate roughly 5 trips in the AM and 7 during the PM condition. So relative to impacts to traffic, there should be no discernible impacts to intersections. So what we focused on is safety. So what we did is we reviewed the site plans that were provided by the site engineer. We obtained traffic accident data from the local police department to determine if there were any potential issues. We reviewed the project area for roadway geometry to ensure that adequate sight distance is available at the intersections that are available existing. We found that there were no crashes within the neighborhood, and for the period that we reviewed, which is a typical 3-year study period. The main intersection of Cohasset with Dunestis provides adequate sight distances to the east and west for safe access to the neighborhood. That roadway and Narragansett provide access to the main roadways. Carlson Circle is a short 900-foot road, intersects with Dunestis and Lee Street. Presently, there are no stop signs on Carlson Circle. We would recommend that they be installed for proper control and identification. The future condition where June Court comes in to Carlson Circle, we've recommended a T-type intersection with all-way stop. Carlson Circle makes a sharp 90-degree turn right at the property frontage. So cars are uncontrolled. Coming around that corner, they can come at any speeds. So we've recommended that stop signs be placed on Carlson Circle, so everybody entering that intersection has to come to a stop condition. Again, there's only like 14 homes on that street, so it is a very low volume roadway.
What about the existing traffic on Carlson Circle?
Again, it services only 14 homes, so it's very light.
It's not a cut through from any place?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone else here? Thank you.
Mr. Becerra, please. Can I swear him in? Yes.
State your name and position, please.
Yeah, my name is Richard T. Bezdera, I'm a professional land surveyor.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
I recommend the board accept him as an expert.
Mr. Becerra, for the record, what is your surveying license number?
1786.
That goes way back.
Yes.
Would you describe to the board what I briefly described in terms of the layout of the cul-de-sac, the lots, and basically the size of the lots?
Sure. Sure, as we mentioned, we are in an R8 zone requiring 8,000 square feet of land. So we're proposing on this almost 3 acres of land is to have a cul-de-sac coming off Carlson Circle. We're going to be naming it, right now we have it June Court, coming down 300 feet, 40-foot wide into a 50-foot radius cul-de-sac. There's an existing house on Cohasset Road now, number 146. That will be the 8th lot in the subdivision, but will have no access to the back property. So the new 7 lots will be coming off, again, Carlson Circle, in a southerly direction on a new road into the subdivision. We're proposing 7 lots around the cul-de-sac. They all meet the zoning requirements with the frontage, the area. And again, this is 300 feet of new road that we're putting in. It'll be a public road, and it does meet all the requirements that the town of West Warwick has in their regulations.
Mr. Becerra, in that plan, you would identify 2 areas, glasses are not good anymore, one area drainage lot approximately 7,200 square feet, and possible drainage area on lot 4. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Is that where you envision that we would be utilizing the retention
Yes.
area here?
Yes, most of the retention we're proposing would be in this area here. And there is a low spot already existing in this area here that would, any additional drainage would be coming down to that area in that low spot.
I have nothing further, Mr.
Yeah,
Fitzgerald.
and the actual calculation of the size of the drainage lots will come in the next application.
Yes, with the civil engineer will be preparing all the engineering calculations that we would have to get approved by all the boards.
Thank you, Mr. Vizar. Any other questions for Mr. Vizar?
No, I'm just noticing when I'm reading the traffic by RAB, it says 2017. Do you have anything more current that you had on the studies for that Carlson Circle area? You have different charts from different reports, I'm just trying to understand it. So this says 2000 yearly site summary, and then the wording's all.
That's just record information
Okay.
for Cohasset Ave obtained from the Department of Transportation, just so you could have an idea of what the
That's the
traffic was.
most current they have?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
Mr. Carrigan?
State your name and address.
Craig Richard Carrigan, last name Carrigan.
So raise your right hand. Tell the truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Mr. Carrigan, what is your occupation?
I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Rhode Island. I have been registered as such since 1990.
And basically, as part of your duties, what do you do in terms of subdivision of this nature?
I've been retained to complete the drainage design, should this go forward.
Have you testified before this board before?
Yes,
And you've been qualified
Arthur Street.
expert here?
Yes.
Mr. DiFiore, I request that based upon prior in his history of 1990 as an engineer.
I would recommend so.
Okay.
I know this is a little early.
Okay, do we have to, is there a motion to
Oh, sorry.
accept Mr. Corrigan as?
Move that motion.
Second. All right, all- Any further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I know this is a little early, you're normally in at the preliminary stage, I know I've done many preliminary plans with you, but looking at the plan that was drawn by Mr. Bezdera's office and looking at the work that you have done, if any, out at the site, do you see any problem of the applicant containing the water runoff from the 7 new homes and the roadway known as June Court?
No, I do not. It would be handled through a combination of probably rain gardens, qualified pervious areas, and infiltration swales. I based that on a couple of quick calcs and the soil evals that have been completed on site to determine groundwater table.
So you see no problem of maintaining a 0% runoff on this site?
I don't have a choice, so no. It's subject to both town regulations, and we also need to get a RIPD's permit out of the state, so it will have DEM review as well as town.
So before the town reviews it, you would need Department of Environmental
We
Management
need a state
approval?
permit.
Okay. I have
Thank
nothing
you.
further.
Questions? Any questions? No, we're good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before you go in any further, just, it has been mentioned, recommended about stop signs at that intersection. Just for the knowledge of the board, the way stop signs come about is that if the board should approve this project and it goes forward, a councilman requests of the traffic committee the installation of stop signs at whatever intersections they want. The traffic committee then does a study that's made up of the police, the fire, the planner, a number of the experts. And if the traffic committee goes forward with the stop signs, they send it to me, I prepare an ordinance. The ordinance goes before the council, and the council establishes the stop signs. I just wanted the board to know the procedure that is
Yeah,
followed
that-
on
that-
those.
And would we expect that procedure prior to the preliminary approval?
I don't think you can have it until the streets are there.
Okay, so it has to, so they have to commit to
They-
going
you-
through the
you-
process, but not.
You have to approve the plan.
Plans, and then
So the
they-
plan is in
with-
existence,
and then that-
and then a councilman says,
All
I would like stop signs on these public
Okay.
streets. The
Okay.
streets don't exist until then.
Till that then, okay. And it has to be a member of the council to,
The normal procedure is a councilman requests a traffic study. The traffic committee then takes it over.
okay, thank you.
My experience has always been, has come through the TRC, the Technical Review Committee, in which the chief of police sits on, and he or she, I'll be politically correct, will make that recommendation, and it follows it that by the time we get to the end of the preliminary stage,
Yeah.
those would be resolutions, and again, with the consent of your town planner, the council.
Great, okay, all right, thank you.
Basically, that's it in a nutshell. 7 lots, all compliance, no variance, meet all laws and regulations of the town and the state of Rhode Island.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Was that,
Right?
was that Carlson Circle, was that owned by the town, that baseball field? Or was that always
Oh,
private?
let me address that before we go too far, okay?
I used to love playing there.
Okay. It's got the recreation sign on it.
Yeah.
And apparently that baseball field was utilized as a local playground baseball
Yeah.
field by the owner. And I understand for the past 7 or 8 months, the owner has tried to negotiate a sale of that property to the town, but all things being equal, it did not work out.
Oh, so the town never owned it?
Yeah,
No.
the town never owned it, no.
Wow.
It's always been a gratuity buy for it to the town, for the children in the area to play.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. There is a sign on the back
Yeah.
there that basically says it's limited to T-ball, by the way.
Okay.
To be played on that field, so, just so, I don't know why
Mr.
it
Chairman,
said that.
may I just address that for a minute? There was some outreach by a representative of the property owner approximately 2 years ago to the town and the council member in the area, and there were multiple discussions with regard to the town securing a first right of refusal on the property, and that was the understanding with the town moving forward, and the town was open to those discussions with the property owner. However, when a formal offer was made to the town, it was not for a first right of refusal. It had time limits on it. It gave the town approximately 3 months to sign a purchase and sales agreement for a value that exceeded, at least in the town's opinion, exceeded the value of the property. The town did not have the ability and does not have the ability to respond to an offer to purchase property within that time frame. It's something that would have to go through a process before the town council and would have to go out to the general electorate of the town to authorize. So the town could not meet that time limit. At that point, I believe the property owners started to, or even prior to that, it was presented to the town that they were having discussions with developers on the property. So while there was some conversation, the town did not have an ability to respond within the time limit and the values that were presented to the town for that purchase.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone that, going to open this to the public? Is there anyone that would want to speak in favor of this subdivision? No, no? All right, I don't see anyone here to speak in favor. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition? Please, step up. Okay,
Please state your name and address.
My name is Joseph DeFalco. I live at 15 Carlson Circle.
Would you raise your right hand?
Beg
Would
pardon?
you raise your right hand?
Oh, yes.
Swear
I'll
to tell the
swear
truth.
anything, but my wife said be careful.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I promise to tell the truth.
Let me try to help this. Okay, let's do it this way.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. I got a few questions, that's all. I have, along the property line, hedges, right on the line. What's the law on that?
Hedges on the line?
so the hedges are right on the property line.
Hedges.
Yeah, it's right
On the line.
right on the property line, I see them.
2 house lots butt to it, it's gonna be the backyard, I assume.
Yep.
Are the hedges on your property or?
Well, on the line. And they're 4 feet wide. What is the law on that?
You own your half,
Well,
they own their half.
well, what happens to them?
I can't answer that.
We don't know.
Well, you must know the answer. Must have had
Whatever-
some property
whatever-
before that had that problem.
Do you own the hedges, sir?
Yes.
You own the hedges?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That was the only house when I built it. It was a farmland when I built it.
But those hedges are planted on on the property line?
It has two hedges on each side of my property.
I don't know.
They're 200 feet long.
I just don't know, yeah. Yeah, I don't know what.
Wherever the property line is where the property line is.
Yeah.
That's right, that's
And
right.
if it runs down the middle, obviously the owner of that can go and cut the hedges up. They can't cut his,
No.
but he's allowed his to encroach on ours, so it's an
Okay.
encroachment.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
Again.
they could make an agreement on a fence.
Again, you know, you've got a situation here that, this is way down the road, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Where, before we start putting up fences or neighbors coming in and buying these houses, it's gonna be at least a year and a half, okay? Now, if a neighbor wants to come in and he wants to put up a fence there, and you guys agree, you'd rather have a fence than hedges, but I can't tell you right now what we're gonna do, okay?
May I have a suggestion? May I make a suggestion?
Yep.
The developer is here this evening.
Yep.
You could certainly have a conversation with him about your concern between now and the next meeting. He's here. Get his name and number, or take the time after the meeting to discuss your issue with him, and, hopefully that can be worked out amicably.
Very good. What kind of property are you gonna have on that? You gonna have cellars, or you gonna have, no cellars?
You know, that's not something that we
not
have to
today.
get into, it's not germane to the board. We have to get a building permit from the building inspector, whatever he and the building inspector allows us to do. I don't know what we're gonna do, because we don't know who's gonna buy it. I may come along and buy it and say, look, I can't walk upstairs anymore, I want this on a slab with one story. I may get a young people say, I want a basement, first floor, second floor. It's not before the board of what's coming in here. The
Okay.
market will dictate to us what kind of houses and price range.
Well, the only reason I'm asking that, because they say over here that all drainage would go
Okay.
into the ground
Okay, let me-
from the roof.
Okay.
Into the ground, and that's what.
I'm not an engineer, but I'm gonna explain to you. All the gutters,
Yeah.
okay? The gutters are gonna come down. There's gonna be what they call a dry well.
Right.
And there's a hole there dug, filled up with stone, and the engineer will percolate, check the percolation of how much water that will absorb into the soil. It's not gonna be near the house, it will be away from the house, so if there is a cellar, it's not going back in the basement.
Very good. No,
Okay.
that,
Excuse me, Mr. Panero,
Leading up to what I
stand
wanted
up
to
and
bring
swear
up.
in as a civil engineer? That was pretty good.
You qualify.
You stayed in a Holiday Inn Express. That was pretty good, Craig.
all right. Anyway, the top part of this here road is the highest spot. It's 257 feet. My property is 1 foot lower. It's 155 feet. That line goes right through my property, all the way down to where they have, where they have this here, right here, is the same height. And under all this here is hard pan, which is about 4 feet deep. And that hard pan does not drain water. And all the water goes down this way and this way. And where this here, if you say you can't drain that water, you're gonna leave it here, where is that gonna build up over there where it don't drain?
You're talking about rainwater on the property itself.
Number, this house here, the Padua, when it rains today real hard, it's a river. In the backyard, a river, I mean, 4 inches high. They have a sub pump in on side every time it rains to pump in the street. Now, if that's so there, and they say they're gonna have a culvert here, right next to their property, and I can't drain the water now. And they're saying they may have to use it over there. This one over here, if they keep on draining over here, it can't go through the water because it flows this way here, because this here is only going down 1 feet, 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet. And the same thing on this side. It goes high, and you're saying you can't pump the water out of there, it's gonna stay there, and it won't drain that hot there.
I think we're still preliminary. I don't think we've done boring samples.
You know, I just
Yeah.
brought it up, Mr. Carrigan was available to come in.
Yeah.
We, just to show that we know what needs to be done.
Yeah.
That final engineering, which, again, like I said, this is two-dimensional. I'm not looking down into the dirt.
Yeah.
But when it comes, we know what this board, your town engineer, and DEM requires us to do. We can't put a gallon more of water onto someone's property that surrounds this. We need to contain it. And again, that's not the day for us to talk about it here. We need to go to DEM, and DEM says, you can't do it, then we can't do it.
But this
we
isn't
don't
the,
know.
Why didn't you have
Why, let me
this
hear
done
it, excuse me.
before
This-
you came here? Why didn't you have this?
Don't
done?
respond.
Okay, I'm not gonna argue.
No, and this, the question on drainage will come up at a next hearing. This is a preliminary plan approval. A lot of details will be added next time, assuming the preliminary plan gets approved.
Mr. Diamantino, could we
Yes.
explain to them that if there's an existing condition that's on the property now,
Yep.
it's not our job to come in and, right?
Oh,
We
that's
don't-
true.
We
That's
can't,
true.
we don't make it any
No,
worse. Is that right, Mark?
Right.
That's
As-
correct.
as
And we
really-
don't, no, what I'm
Yeah.
saying, no, that's what I'm trying to tell you. You're saying it's gonna make it worse, but
But we
Mr.
can't-
Carrigan hasn't opened up.
can't make
Mr.
it
Carrigan
worse.
has to follow state regulations, DEM.
Can't make
The
it
DEM
worse.
and state regulations, this board does not allow them to drop a gallon of water on your property.
Mr.
If
Chairman,
there's a four-foot stream,
Yeah.
it can't turn into a
All
6-foot
right.
stream. That's what
Mr.
I'm saying.
DeFalco, you have a number of questions that I suggest you take up with the developer after the meeting out in the hall.
Mr.
Okay?
But
Chairman,
again,
maybe,
the drainage will be addressed in detail in the future, and that's what the requirement is. We don't
Right.
come before here and have drainage at master plan. That's not what the law of the state
That's
of
not
Rhode
the way it
Island
works.
says.
John.
It's a concept.
Mr.
Matt-
Chairman,
Go ahead.
maybe if I try to give an explanation with one of the comments that just came from the audience about why wasn't it done? This type of a project is a two-step project. Tonight,
Three, actually.
the only thing that is before, three-step, but the second part is the finalization.
Yeah, yes.
Tonight, the only thing that is before this board is there is a concept that they wanna come in and put a street in and put 7 houses in. All this board does tonight is say, we like your concept, or we don't like your concept. If the board tonight says, we like your concept, they then go out and they have to have the engineer regarding all the drainage, all the sewer, all the topography, all the style house, all of the detail. None of that occurs tonight. Tonight is strictly, we like the concept or we don't like the concept. If they say we like the concept, this then goes off the calendar for another hearing. At that hearing, the questions that you have about the drainage on another piece of property, about the traffic, about stop signs, about water control, all of those details, they have to come back at that time with the experts and satisfy this board that all of the laws and regulations and state laws and DEM are satisfied. At that point in time, if their drainage is not satisfied, this board can say no. So I think that the very serious concern that you have is a little premature because of the way the state law reads.
So why are we here tonight? I don't.
Al, let me respond. Excuse me. I just want to respond to Mr. DeFalco and maybe some of the comments that are coming out of the audience. And I would ask that you please hold your comment, and if you do have one, you may step up to the microphone. The purpose of this hearing tonight is to present a general conceptual plan. And the purpose of listening to the public tonight, as Mr. DeFalco is speaking, is to hear about these issues that the neighborhood is aware of, that the developer, the planning board, the planner may not be. So he's giving us information. I imagine that the developer is listening. I'm imagining his engineer and his surveyor are listening because he's raising issues that they're going to be looking at. And if they're unaware of them, He's providing information that will be helpful and useful to the developer in designing their development so that they can address these. So if Mr. Falco is saying, in this particular area of the property, it doesn't drain properly, you got a foot of cover, you got hard pan, I can't imagine you putting a drain in there. I imagine that the professional engineer is hearing this, Mr. Kerrigan. They will do some test holes over there. They will see what that soil looks like, if that's actually the case. If it is, he will need to design some sort of a solution to that. Or he will look at putting the drainage somewhere else. That's the purpose of the meeting. It's to take input from the public. You people have an intimate knowledge of the area, of the neighborhood. It's for them to listen and to consider what you're saying, to check it out. If it has merit, it's to solve the problem.
Why I am saying this, because what I heard him say, no problem.
Well,
No,
he said no problem with meeting the regulations. He said no problem with meeting DM regulations. He says that, you heard what he said? He said, I gotta do what I gotta do.
All right, Attorney DeFalco, please, look at all those other people who want to talk. Please, take a seat. Thank you for everything you've raised, okay? Appreciate that, but we need to move on. Okay? Who's next? All right, okay, thank you.
My name's Chris Tyler, I'm at 31 Carlson Circle.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. I'm gonna be at this, my house is at this intersection that you wanna stick in front of my home. Now, I wanna address the thing with the rainwater that seems to be a big thing here. I'm concerned about groundwater, which is a huge problem in that neighborhood, because my basement's flooded all the time, and so are my neighbors. And there is a difference if you put a slab or a basement, because now you're disturbing what's underneath, so we need to address that now, not after the permit is already granted and they start digging. Because you're disturbing what's under the ground already, and it's bad enough as it is. So collecting all this rainwater is really, that's great and dandy, but it doesn't do anything for what's in the ground already, which is a problem over there, because my basement's flooded a lot.
Could you please address the board? He's the attorney. You should be
I'm
addressing
just,
the board.
all right. Does it matter who I look at? You don't hear me, right?
Well, Al was late, so you should address that.
And you got in late, so I'm gonna pick on you.
He thought you were singling him out.
No. That's a huge problem right there, I think, and I know everyone's thinking that. The other problem is the direction of the road. You can sit here all day and talk about traffic and all this other, you don't live in that neighborhood. That's not gonna work the way it is. You're sticking an intersection in front of my house. I'm not gonna look at you no more. And the road is tiny as it is, and to sit there and say that, was it the Squintus Road? That road there where the Sunoco station is? Donitos. There's been more accidents at the top of that road than I care to remember. It's already hard to get out of there. I've sit there with, just me sit there, you'll sit there for 10 minutes before you can get out. So now you're adding to that. And the road coming in it should come off Cohasset Ave. But I know why it's not. And I think everybody in this room knows why. And it's because of money. There's a way that would work. But it's easier just to cut into our street and stick it in there.
Thank you for your
I'm not done. There's a lot of other stuff. I mean, electrical problems, where are the wires gonna go? I have no wires in front of my house now. So now what am I gonna pole in front of my house now too?
I suspect not, but we gotta wait till the next plan to address that.
Snow removal? Right now, it's all piled up where you want to put this entrance. And it's about 10 feet high when it snows. Where's all that going to go? Nobody knows. So what are we here for? And to sit here and say it's not going to wreck the value of my house, putting an intersection in front of it, is BS. That's all bull. Because it's all money. That's all it is here. The town should have bought this field, which is a whole different,
Whole different
it is. That should have never happened. And that's that.
All right, thank you.
What's your name and address, please?
I'm Rebecca Handy. I live at 39 Lee Street in West Warwick.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. I wanted to say to you that I am opposed to the access from this development being on Carlson Circle. I regularly go through Carlson Circle every day. At this point, Carlson Circle and the areas around it are just a nice, peaceful, quiet neighborhood. We have kids riding bikes, we have old people, we have people walking dogs, we have people in wheelchairs. It's an area that at this point has a lot of peacefulness and safety to it, and I do feel that having the access on Carlson Circle will in fact put our safety in jeopardy. And I respectfully request that the planners consider some way to find that the entry should be at Queeset Avenue, the same as it is for the next lot down the Highview cul-de-sac. And I would say with regard to the stop signs, I live on Lee Street. There's a stop sign at the top of my street, and it is regularly violated. So I'm not so sure that stop signs are going to be the solution to the problem. And regarding whether we like or don't like the concept, I just want to say I don't like it right at this point. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Your name and address, please.
Anna Maria Raimondo, 26 Carlson Circle.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth.
Yes, I
Nothing but
do.
the truth.
Like, as you said, we're here to discuss the concept and whether it's a good concept or not. I also want to emphasize what Ms. Handy said, putting in the entrance right there, and I am directly impacted across the street at the 90-degree angle. I feel that it's a safety risk. I feel that it's going to cause, whether it's 1 car, 2 cars, 17 cars, I mean, the 2.2 children per house, we have 5 kids in our house. Who's to say somebody's not going to move in there with 3 teenagers and 4 to 5 cars per house? We don't know that. We can speculate all we want to, but we don't know. And the impact of, we've seen the stop signs in town. We've seen how people run them. It becomes a drag race. We have that occasionally over there anyway. Like Andy said, down the street we have the stop signs. Nobody abides by them. But it is a quiet neighborhood, and it is safe at this point. And our kids can go outside and play, and they can ride bikes, and we don't have to be overly concerned the way that I think we will be if this development goes in with the access point across the street from my house. Now, I just want to say a little bit of something about on a mental health level, and from that standpoint, I have a son who is mentally challenged. He is on the spectrum, which I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but he's on the autistic spectrum. And sounds and lights affect him to a large degree at certain points. He would be significantly impacted, as well as our family, with this, because he is going to see 1 car, 2 cars, 5 cars go by with an influx of lights and sound and whatever this development brings. And I understand all the studies and what that may bring and what you anticipate. You can't anticipate for everything, and you can't say how it's going to impact us exactly. There's always that room for error, and I feel that this is going to directly impact our family and my son, along with our neighbors, but my son's bedroom's right at the front of the house. And if you can guarantee me that people aren't going to be leaving at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work or come home, or the middle of the night, we're not going to have an influx of cars, the party, whatever, that's one thing, but you know that's not going to happen. And there's going to be times where he's up all night and he's impacted significantly by this, which in turn impacts me and our entire household. So that's what I want to stress, other than sewage, water, drainage, electricity, and things that can be looked at in the future, but this is directly, potentially impacting us at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you state your name and address?
Jason Linchardi, 26 Carlson Circle.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do. I'm here tonight. Some of you may or may not know, I am the West Warwick Town Councilman for Ward 4, and this development is in Ward 4. However, I am not representing the town council or myself as a councilman tonight. I want that on record, please. I am directly impacted because if you look on your maps, 26 Carlson Circle is directly across the street from this development. I hate the concept. I hate it. Nobody's going to change my mind. I understand development. I understand business. I respect the attorney here who's representing. However, you're not in the neighborhood. I'm in the neighborhood. And just like Anna just spoke about my son, that's my number one priority. I'm going to be the one up all night with him when the lights come shining in our house at 9 o'clock at night as people are leaving, which is understandable. Or they're leaving in the morning at 6 a.m. before he gets up. I get all that. But I'm going to want all your numbers, because when I'm up in the middle of the night, I'm going to share that with you. Because it's not going to be a one-time thing, it's going to be an all-time thing. And the quality of life that this development, neighborhood, whatever you want to call it, it may be great for the new neighborhood, may be great for the developers. It's going to suck for us. And I'm speaking of my family. Now, tonight, someone mentioned the term only. It's only going to be, only 14 houses on the neighborhood. That only term means that basically we don't count. And I don't agree with that. That's not right. There are other issues that are going to be brought up. However, we're talking about concept. In this concept, I'm basing this off of that map and what was on the agenda tonight. A, we already have poor water pressure. I'm sure it's going to be affected. We already have poor road conditions on Carlson Circle. I don't know if anybody has traveled Carlson Circle, but the road needs to be, the road's in poor condition. You put 14 more cars, as somebody said, coming in and out of that area. That's just for the people that live there, and that's just the minimum. If somebody has a teenager, that's going to be another car. If somebody has two teenagers, there's 2 more cars. If they have their family come over, which you know is going to happen, they're going to have parties there. You're putting a nice picnic area in. That's an invitation for the families to come. There's going to be FedEx drivers coming in, UPS drivers. Everything's going to impact the road. It's going to impact the traffic. And I don't know who did, I respect the traffic study that was done, but when my friend called me who lives on 4 Lee Street last year because a car came speeding from Doneto's house by St. Mary's Cemetery and wound up in his garage, that's an accident. And you can check with the police, because he called me over crying that him and his family, who is also autistic, had an autistic child, was just in their garage 5 minutes earlier, and the car went halfway through the garage.
Was that on Donatus?
That came from Doneto's at the intersection of Doneto's and Lee Street. And that's because somebody was flying down Doneto's and went into a house on Lee Street. So I do have that concern as well as Mr. Tyler does. When you come out of that cul-de-sac, and nobody up here, nobody in this room can predict, that it will or will not happen. When I bought my house in 1999, and we bought it with the understanding that that field was always going to be there. It was sort of, I guess, quote, grandfathered in. It was dedicated to the town years before from Mrs. Carr's father, then to Mrs. Carr, who owns the house on Cohasset Avenue, which is the house lot number 8. About 12 years ago, I had to make a decision. Do we want to stay here as the family grew? What do we do? Love the neighborhood, love the privacy. It was great. Kids were coming over, use it for ball and all that. That's what it's there for. Picnics, people walking their dogs, open rec. So we decided to build up on the house. So I put everything I had to make a 2-story house to stay in that area. Now, I'm thinking of putting my position, all right, I want to buy a house. I want to buy my house at an intersection now with a new development coming in there. There is no way. Not even close. And who the hell is going to want to buy my house being at an intersection? Nobody. So I'm stuck. Snow, it's part of the concept because it's part of the map. The snow right now, as Mr. Tyler said, is put directly right at that intersection, right in front of my house, and it is about 10 feet high. And they circle the whole neighborhood, come Lee Street all the way to Carlson Circle, all around, and put the snow there. So if that's going to be the intersection, there's nowhere for the snow to go. And I don't really want to live in Providence, because that's what it's going to be like. So basically, my house will be at an intersection with lights coming in all the time to affect my family, my living room, my dining room, my kids sleeping. It is gonna be in effect. So I don't care what study is done, and I respect the studies, but, and I'm not a professional engineer, but I'm a professional homeowner who lives right there. So I really would like that to be considered, when you're talking about this. I get the DEM regulations, I get the laws. But when it affects real people here, and this neighborhood's here first. We didn't move into a new development. This is coming this way. And I respect your business. I do, I understand it, but please respect my feelings on this. Right now, as you see Carlson Circle, because a traffic study was done, you also see that there are cars on the road because driveways can hold 2 cars. But as families go, in the evolution of family, it's kids grow up, they have a car. You may have a camper. You may have a motorcycle. There's cars lining the street because, that's what we have to do. So it really becomes, at some point, a one-lane road. So this is still going to impact it more because more cars are coming in. I do have some questions, and it may or may not be the time to answer them. If it's not, I apologize. But there are 4 streets in the neighborhood. I've walked it this past year for recreation, for walking purposes, as a homeowner, as a taxpayer, who pays $6,300 in taxes, by the way. Highview, it's a Highview Circle. It's a dead end, one way in, one way out, off Cohasset Avenue. Fairmont Street, and these are all in the vicinity. Fairmont Street is one way in, one way out, and it's a road. There's no circle. You straight in, straight out. Hollow Court is off Cohasset Avenue. It's a court similar to what you want to describe here, off Cohasset Avenue. Albion Street, off Cohasset Avenue. I don't know the logistics of everything, and to be honest, I really don't care. It makes sense to put this access road off Cohasset Avenue. Whether it can or can't be done, that's not my problem. I think there should be a way to find that instead of disturbing the neighborhood. Because I tell you, all the issues I just mentioned will most likely go away if this came off Cohasset Avenue. It's not my fault that the lady, Mrs. Carr, does not want to sell Section 8, or she did sell Section 8 and doesn't want to move. That decision affects the quality of life for me and my family. I have one more question on the agenda piece that I'm unclear of, and I don't know if it could be cleared up tonight. It's item number 3, where it says that all drainage shall be maintained by a neighborhood association. I'm looking at the words neighborhood association versus drainage. Is the neighborhood association just going to be the new development? Just those 7 houses?
Yes, the neighborhood association would be comprised of the lots that are within the development, and each lot owner would be a member of the association responsible for a maintenance fee to pay for any kind of maintenance or repairs to the drainage system.
So it's going to be
Just in the new development.
So it's going to be private.
Then have them have their own road going in and out there.
So it's going to be private.
The drainage will be maintained by an association, right?
Okay, but this is going to be a private association.
Yes, it is, yes, self-contained. The road will be a public right-of-way, but the drainage will be maintained by an association.
So what about the picnic tables and the basketball court? Is there anything proposed like that? I saw on the map, it might be the existing what's there now or something
Yeah, I think
that's.
what's there. I'm not sure what that is. I think that's what's there now.
No, we are not proposing any open space recreation whatsoever. No, that's just the existing
Okay,
conditions.
thank you for clearing that up. Is it safe to, well, I have to ask this question, because it's on the map for homes. Can these houses be leased or rented?
Yes.
They can. So potentially, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, potentially you could have someone buy this house, say, I don't really want it, and I'm gonna rent it out to somebody and have no control of what's going on. That's happened around my neighborhood, and I can speak for myself, I can tell you, we can check with the police if you want to. I haven't really investigated all of it, but we've had a house that was rented.
Yeah.
And The police have been there many times as a drug house. There was actually 2 of them in the vicinity on Carlson Circle. And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I have to be a fool if I don't address this, even though it's going to be a secluded 7-house neighborhood. If this is the potential, I really don't want this to turn into all rental units either. I don't want to live in the back of Arctic. If I did, I'd move there. So I think this relates to the whole thing. It relates to the concept. It relates to the map. So I really think before you guys make any decision tonight, if you can't answer any of these questions, I'm not on the planning board. I'm just I'm a homeowner who pays $6,300 in taxes and worried about my kid and my family. But I don't know. There's too many what ifs here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LaCharlie.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, although Mr. Licciardi made it clear that, excuse me, he was here tonight as an abutting property owner, I would ask that the board put in the record that they accepted his comments as within the 200-foot radius, and he specifically was not here before you in any capacity as a town councilman.
So, we have a motion, all right. Okay, so the motion is that Mr. Licciardi's testimony was his personal testimony and not his testimony as the councilman for the area. Okay, we're all good with that? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
State your name and address.
James Pollitt, 2 Carlson Circle.
Would you raise your right hand? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Most of what I had to say, and I wrote everything down, has been touched on by people before me. The kids playing ball there, I would love to go over there in the summertime and watch I call them Tiny Toons, playing T-ball. That will no longer be if you let this thing go forward. People walk their dogs there, or play catch with their dogs there. That's the only open space around. If this thing goes through, forget it. It was a big selling point. We bought this house, our house, about a dozen and a half years ago, and it was a big selling point. I walked down the street, and I saw a field there, a ball field with kids playing T-ball. And I said, okay, I want to talk to this guy and talk about bringing down a price. I don't know what this guy is talking about with the drainage. I had an addition put on my house because I have a handicapped stepson. By the way, the noise pollution and the light pollution will directly affect him. But I had an addition put on the house with excavation in the backyard. And it was like a swimming pool because 2 feet down was all clay. There was no water runoff. Whenever it rained, it filled up. And I had to wait for days and put sump pumps out there to get the water out. The water pressure, I had it tested. I got 35 PSI. Now, normal is 80. With this thing going up here, it'll bring the water pressure way down. I have to put in a sump pump right now just to bring it up to 180, which I don't want to do because 35 we got used to it, and it's okay for taking showers and watering the garden, but
They can't take the water pressure down, so just to let you know that. I know you make that statement, they cannot come in and put the water in and knock it down. They can't make it worse, and they could probably only make it better. So I want you to understand, because that statement's been used a lot here. They cannot come in and just throw water in, your water goes down to 25 PSI. Is that a correct statement, Mr. Brunel?
The requirement, 35 is Coventry's. Kent County Water, I believe state regulation is actually 20 PSI, so they're way more than what Kent County Water is.
What I'm saying is your plat cannot affect the water pressure.
We have to submit a model to Kent County Water, cost us $5,000 or $10,000 to do that. Either she's gonna talk or I'm gonna talk. Okay? Thank you. We have to submit a model, and that model has to come back from Kent County Water that the supply and the pressure is not gonna be affected in the area. And again, we're not gonna spend that until we get to the stage of a master plan. And again, that's part of the process. And again, that's why it takes so long. These don't happen overnight.
I listen to all these NIMBYs, and it's great to put places up like this in other people's backyard, but not in theirs. No. Talk about the noise and traffic pollution and light pollution. It was stated a little earlier, just getting out of Donidos onto Route 3 rather, in the morning during rush hour is a nightmare. But, you know, we do it because. And with this thing going up here, it's just going to create more of a problem. And they want to put the entrance and exit on Donidos? I mean, on Carlson Circle? Are you kidding me? It's a quiet street. It's just a few houses. And it was stated earlier, you know, because it's a few houses, we don't matter. Well, we do matter. Yeah, that's exactly why we moved there. I came from Providence, where it was noisy and dirty, and when we moved to Carlson Circle in West Warwick, I used to sit and listen to the quiet at night. That's going to go out the window with this thing being built, because you know, I can just see after it changes hands. I've been in the construction business all my life, and I know these things change hands after time. People make their money and sell them, and then they make their money and sell them, and before you know it, it's going to be a rundown slum. The winter runoff, I don't know where they're going to put the snow and the slush and the ice and the water. I have 2 sump pumps in my basement just to handle the winter runoff, because the bottom of the house fills with water simply because it's clay. You know, I get it's all about dollars and cents here, but you know, we spent a lot of money to move into this area, and don't take it away from us. Come on, I mean.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address.
John Handy, 35 Carlson Circle.
Raise your right hand. So I tell the truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Concerns, a lot of what I'm going to say is probably repetitive, but I just feel it's necessary to speak it only because the more we say, I think the more it may sink in, hopefully. We talk about traffic. With the traffic study, was that traffic study done based on book numbers? Or somebody standing on the corner? Somebody walking the neighborhood? Somebody watching people go through those stop signs? Those are factors. Have they ever come, did they observe it at about 5 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock on any given weekday? When somebody mentioned it's a cut-through. Well, it is a cut-through. Because people will come up Narragansett Avenue, Coit Avenue, come back up Narragansett Avenue, they'll come up Lee Street, they'll come around. You can always tell when there's an accident or traffic's heavy, because our street all of a sudden becomes busy. And that just, I think it becomes a dangerous situation because of the traffic overload. Somebody mentioned about the current stop signs that are there at a 4-way intersection. Personally, I think there should be a 4-way stop sign, because the people coming, I think it's just inherent that when you're driving, you think the right-of-way is Lee Street, and a lot of people do think it's the right-of-way. And people coming up the side up from the hill on the bottom of Carlson Circle, we talk about sight lines, you can't see. It's trees, cars, and several things there. So I think the traffic is an issue, and I live 2 houses down from the park, so that intersection, I gather, is going to be right in front of my house as well. I don't know where the stop sign is going to be, but it would have to be almost right on the corner, because there is no sight line to see who's coming around. And the cars that travel now, once again, they come around that corner. I come home at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll come around that corner, I take a wide, I go into Chris's yard once in a while. because I'm afraid somebody's coming up that street and they come too fast and they take a wide corner. So it's a pretty dangerous intersection now, and if they don't observe the stop signs, that's going to be an issue. Just to reiterate, the water in the basement, heavy rains, I do get water in my basement. It's not flooded where it's inches thick, well, inches tall, I should say, but it's there. And if the drainage isn't maybe done properly, I have this fear that it's going to get worse. Rain's heavy, I'm calling home to my wife or my son, anybody check the basement, make sure the basement, I'll be checking it every day it rains until we get a comfort level, which may be a long time, that the drainage that would be set up is proper. So I just think that a lot of consideration should be given, as Jason has said and those before me, about the quality of life in the neighborhood is going to go down. It may get good for the people who do buy the houses, but for us, it's not going to be any better. Thank you.
Anyone else want to?
Hi,
State your name and address.
Josephine Bucci, 45 Carlson Circle.
Would you raise your right hand? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do. So I just purchased this home in December. I have 4 grandchildren, 2, 4, 6, and 8. We have traveled on foot, on bike, on scooter, about 20 times so far, because I believe the kids to be outdoors. We've played football there, we've played baseball there, and we already planned yesterday a Thanksgiving Day football game. And that's probably possible this year if this doesn't go through, but if it does go through, that would be ended. I did buy the home. It's the corner lot on Carlson and Lee. And there is a stop sign there, but I can't even imagine another street making it into a T because it's already right there. I'm right there. And it's a real nice, quiet neighborhood, and that's why I purchased it, for the future of the kids, of course. And I agree with everything they all said. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Iris Chiamaco. I live at 9 Lee Street.
Would you raise your right hand? please?
Oops,
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
I
truth.
do. I live at 9 Lee Street. I don't have the same problems that everybody else does. I have the problem with Duntos. That's a busy road. I live adjacent to the guy who had the car run through his garage. Okay, that road, Duntos, is busy now. And they cut through to go down to Buckley and back there, like back off like 117. That's the cutoff. They come from Cohasset down Duntos, and I live like on the corner. That stop sign does nothing. Nobody stops there. Coming from Cohasset to Duntos, there is no stop sign, and they go down that road. So you're going to build a plaque. They're going to come from Cohasset down that way. They're going to come from that way to cut down to 117. So, I mean, Lee Street, granted, runs in the middle. But you know what? You want to build houses, put the access to Cohasset. Because like everybody said, it's a quiet neighborhood. I've lived there for 30 years. I just paid my mortgage off. I said, I don't want this. The town of West Warwick gets my money every year. I don't think that, okay, you want to develop that. I bought the house because of the playground. My kids grew up playing in that playground. My grandkids go over there. We play with the dogs there, And you want to build a development there. That's how I feel.
Thank you.
James Ainscough, 3 Carlson Circle.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth?
Yes, sir.
Nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. I just want to reiterate, and again, I don't know that everybody's familiar with this area, but to follow along with Mr. DeFalco, I live here, on the corner. This whole area here, which I believe is owned by the church, on Church Street. This is a graveyard here. None of this area here can they put graves in because of the water that collects there every year. It's a swampland between the fire station and Benito Street. This is the major area. This year it extended all the way down almost to my house. So, just to reiterate, this whole area, all these houses on this street, this one, there's one here, one here, one here, my house, and the house here, they're all on slabs because of the water issue. Okay, and Jim, who spoke, he lives across the street from me, he has a sump pump in his basement, and Fran, who lives next door, she has a grate in her basement, water comes up through the basement in the spring. This whole area is like an accident waiting to happen as far as drainage. I can't see how this possible drainage area, which is within 200 feet of this wetland, I don't know how it can work, but that's just my opinion. There's an issue with water in the area.
Thank you.
Not up on top of the hill where the houses are gonna go. It's all the people around.
State your name and address.
Gabriella Handy, 39 Lee Street.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth? Nothing but the truth?
I do. I live at 39 Lee Street. I have lived there over 20 years. I grew up playing in the field, and I know a lot of neighborhood kids would love the chance to potentially play there, play softball, catch. I've seen people take their cars, so I know they're from not our neighborhood. They take their cars, children, they play catch. People bring their dogs to play catch. I just would hate to see this park go to waste to become a neighborhood. I've loved going up to the field every single day when I was in middle school and high school. So I'm just very against it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
State your name and address.
Bill Demore, 37 Carlson Circle.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. It seems that everything's being said tonight circles around safety, traffic, water, whether it's drainage or pressure. I can tell you this, gentlemen, that I had it water tested myself several years ago. It was 35 pounds, 32 pounds by Kent County. I complained because taking a shower, running the faucet in the kitchen, and if you're trying to water your grass, forget it. It's not gonna happen. Now, the council here made mention that the numbers come in at 20 pounds per square inch. If that was the case, it wouldn't be dripping out of our kitchen faucet when you're running another line in the house or watering the grass. Furthermore, today, I timed how long it would take to fill a 5-gallon bucket. It was 56 seconds. Talking with contractors to have irrigation put in for the lawn, they said you have to have a minimum of 7 gallons a minute. Minimum. So if what he's saying is true about 20 pounds, and I am pushing 35, and I can't get 7 gallons a minute, that means there's no built-in sprinklers in West Warwick. Somewhere the facts are a little askew. They're not right. On the pressure issue. lived in that area my entire life. I moved out for 10 years and wound up moving back because of everything that was said here tonight. It is a good neighborhood, a calm, quiet. Every now and then, yeah, a bad apple rolls in, but then they seem to roll out and it gets back to normal. It's a neighborhood where we all watch out for one another on top of it all. You have a lot to consider here. This is not just a parcel of land that's getting developed. You are going to be infringing on a lot of people. And I go right back to what has been said also. Why can't the entrance be on Cohasset Avenue to solve your water pressure problem that the contractor or the developer doesn't have? I don't know. You said earlier that they won't make it worse.
They can't. That's what I'm
Can't make
trying to tell
worse.
you. They're saying,
Well,
they won't,
it's
but they
already-
legally they can't.
All right, it's already terrible.
Well, I
So what are
understand
they
that.
gonna do, put a pump station
I live
in?
down the bottom of the hill, and mine's terrible, and I understand where you're coming from, and I had to go buy special heads that reduce the pressure down, and I get pressure. I clearly understand it. What I'm trying to tell you is the factual information. Everybody's coming up here and saying, my water's gonna get bigger in the basement, it can't happen legally by the law, it can't
I
happen.
understand
Yeah.
groundwater and all that.
I feel your pain,
I
I'm just
understand
telling you
that.
the legal standpoint.
But I went through 2 booster pumps trying to maintain a family. Blew them right out, because I couldn't get enough water from the line. When everybody came home, they decided to cook at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that's where the water pressure at the time really drops, or if they're all taking showers at the same time in the morning. So, again, going back to, you're saying they can't make it worse, but Kent County ain't gonna do anything to help us either.
I know, but what I'm saying
So
is.
what are they
like,
gonna do, put a pump house in?
I
for the
don't.
7 houses?
I don't know. What I'm saying is, I mean, you have major concerns with Kent County like I do, and I address them with Kent County Water Authority. I mean, I'm not getting as far as I can, but this board's not gonna help you with Kent County Water Authority. We can't.
No, I understand.
Yeah, but I agree with you because I live on Knoxon. I live in the back near the Revere, so I get it. So, I'm just saying, I'm hearing a lot of this and that, and
they
this is
keep
just
putting new
conceptual.
pipes, but they're not increasing pressure.
And I like what the Chin, he said, all these things that the developer's sitting here listening, some of the stuff he probably didn't know of. And I haven't heard anybody say they're not gonna come out to Cohasset Ave, it's just preliminary. All these questions everybody has is when they come here with all the details of how he's gonna do it. You know?
So, Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you, thank you.
State your name and address, please.
Francis Armstrong, 8 Carlson Circle.
Would you raise your right hand? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I'm a 47-year resident of the 8 Carlson Circle, which is pretty much right in the middle of what will be an access road to this kind of new property development. I just wanted to step up and state my objections because of the quality of the neighborhood. I'm another one that bought the house when my kids were small because of the playground, which is what we want to, are talking about getting rid of. The other thing is, they've all discussed the water table, because it is a high water table, and we're at the top of a hill, so that's silly, to think that you have to wait for a rainstorm and check your basement to see if there's inches of water in it, which I do get. And that also has enhanced the amount of termite damage that we may be, I don't know, I think other people in the area, especially our concentrated area, have experienced it, and me included. And I have to pay a contract yearly to maintain the house from termite damage because of the high moisture level in the ground. And I think it's probably significant to the whole area. So I just wanted to say that. It's being in the middle of the houses on Carlson Circle is going to be, there's going to be traffic coming in there. To get to this cul-de-sac is going to be our street. That's it. We have no other choice. And that choice is being made for us without our consent. And that's what I'd like to say.
Thank you. we have do you want to come up? I was going to ask for a motion to close the meeting. Hi.
Move the microphone down, we can't hear you. Thank you.
I live at 21 Governor Street.
Would
What
you
is
raise
your
your
name? Lorraine Fowler.
Why don't you raise your right hand? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I agree with everything they say, and also I wanted to say that St. Mary's had funerals. I don't know if they're taking the traffic.
Can you speak up? I can't read your hand.
I don't know if they're taking the traffic when the funerals come by, but we have lines of cars going down Vineta to the funeral.
To the cemetery?
Whenever they have a,
At the cemetery.
cemetery, whenever they have a funeral. And also about when water, I get water in my backyard, big puddles. And if this does go in, you know, what do we do if it starts raising? You know, start coming closer to your house. Just two questions.
Thank you. Close the public hearing element of that.
Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion?
Mr. Venero, Mike.
Okay,
Very briefly.
okay.
You know, I know a lot of the people here tonight, they've had this ball field there for years and years, and they've treated it as being the town's. And that's all well and good, but the person that owns this has a legal right under the law to sell her property at the highest and best value. But they're not prohibited. Their councilman is here tonight. Not this board, but the board that sits here has the power of eminent domain under our Constitution and the state Constitution to take that property at any time and condemn it and pay the owner what the value is. But this is a poor town. I've lived in this town for 65 years. We have no money.
You're older than that. You lived here
I'm
longer
7.
than.
I moved here when I was 5 years old. I was born in Warren. I am older than that.
Bob Boyer said you moved here before him.
I am 70 years old. I still live in town. I live on Wakefield Street.
Yes.
And we don't have the money to do this, okay? As a town, it'd be great to have open space. Go out and take it. And again, we have no land trust. We have no money for a land trust. And these things are a state of our economic position right now. I'd love to tell these people, go out, your council will condemn this. They don't have the money to do this. Our bond rating is low enough as it is without taking on more debt.
Yeah.
But that being said, the owner of this property has some legal rights. I know Jason Luciani, who I know well, I went to school with his dad. The rental, you know, again, I've been representing builders for 43 years. I've never had a builder build a single-family house to rent it out. You don't make any money on it. They resell them. You look at the area, the only time it happens if a bank forecloses on it, they may rent it out for a while, but people want to turn these things over, so that's not going to happen. A rental market, if you want to put in a multifamily, yes, they do it for that, but not for single families. And again, is it a quiet neighborhood? Yes, it is. And I assume when Carlton Circle was put in 60, 70, 80 years ago, the people on Donatus Street, I think that's how you say it, is Donatus, okay, came in and said, we're in a quiet area. We don't want any more houses. No one wants any more houses. But the law is the law. And we will follow that law to the nth degree. We brought Mr. Carrigan in this evening. I probably shouldn't have. I think I caused more confusion than I did answers. But we know what our charge is. We know we have to keep every gallon of water on that property. Kent County Water, if they approve this subdivision, and you probably see it comes through, is a prohibition against sprinklers. The developer cannot put sprinklers in. That's one of their requirements on the approval. And if you look at any of these subdivisions that you guys have seen over the past few years, since Tim Brown came there 25 years ago, no sprinklers are to be put in, no underground sprinklers. Again, when you sell the house, can someone do it? Yes. Could they stop him? Absolutely. But that's the requirement. We can't put sprinklers in because they don't want the water just being utilized indiscriminately. I asked for an approval based upon the law, and the law only, not emotions.
I'll make this brief. I think I said tonight, I want it noted for the record for the second time. I just had my name thrown out as councilman here in the room. I'm here, Jason Licciardi, 26 Carlson Circle, as a taxpayer, a homeowner, a parent. So I want that for the record.
I had that, they voted.
I already, I wanted,
And we put,
it was, it was said after, I know Attorney Renero just mentioned it,
Yeah.
I wanna make it clear,
Okay,
so thank you.
okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, I'd like a motion to close the public hearing.
Move that motion.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
All right, so, I hear Mr. Bernard, and our role is to uphold the law. And yet I hear all the neighbors and their heartfelt concerns. So frankly, I have very mixed emotions about what we should do. The thing that has touched me the most is the kids in the neighborhood. Seems like there are 2 or 3 kids that are on the spectrum that live in the neighborhood, and at least one who's right at the entrance where the lights will actually have a significant impact. And that concerns me and it bothers me. But frankly, I don't know what we can do about that. And that's the issue that's troubling me. I'm really troubled by this. I'm not sure that we have any good options. So what do you guys think?
Well, I grew up down over there. I mean, I love the field. I mean, the woman that's selling the field or sold the field is not here. She's the one ultimately to, that would be the one I'd give my 2 cents to and say, why would you do this to the neighborhood? But going to Al, I mean, there's emotions and then there's legal. And so what I'm always scared about my vote is I vote and then all of a sudden we're sitting in a court of appeal because they followed every step of the process, and the judge says, why is this even sitting here? And that's why I have to defer to Al on this.
To correct that, the appeal would go from here to the zoning board.
Okay. But I mean, if the process is, they're going on a legal process, does the board have the right to deny a project to move forward where we get more detail on all these questions that the people are asking have to be addressed and will be answered? You know what I'm saying? And then it's gotta go to, does this gotta go to the zoning board after we
No.
make a recommendation?
No.
Okay.
No, if we approve this, my understanding is if we approve this, then it would go to the preliminary plan where all
Well,
the details we put on it. If we approve the master.
If you approve it, it will go to preliminary unless someone from the objectors appealed your
This-
approval,
okay,
and
then
that
it
would
goes-
then go to the zoning board. The zoning board they have a certain standard that they have to meet when reviewing it. They have the right at that point in time to approve your approval, to reject your approval, or to send it back to you with instructions for what other information they want.
Was there any thought from the developer on a different access? I mean, I'm just asking a question, I'm not.
No,
Okay.
again, I talked to
Okay.
Mr. Bannon when that came out.
Yep.
Okay? That road is a state road, it's controlled by DOT.
Yep.
And the odds are DOT will not allow an additional access onto that busy road. It's again, the idea is to have as few roads putting traffic in without having it going down. So again, I asked Mr. Bannon on that. If you'd like to hear from him, I'd be glad to have him come back up.
No, I mean,
No, we believe that.
Now, you know, I mean, as soon as it was said, I said, can we go out there? He said, DOT's never gonna allow this with the traffic on that road.
yeah, there's traffic.
Exactly.
It's DOT.
It's backed up on, it pushes it back on you.
It's just gonna line up on Zanetto Street.
Okay.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this?
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, yeah, I've been down this road before. You know, you make a motion by emotions and then they come back with the letter of the law and they say, you know, here it is. What do you, but what I'm saying is, there's a lot of questions that are being asked here. And we don't have the answers because we're they don't have approval to move forward with this project. They have approval to move forward with all the questions and answers to be answered. That's all it is. And then you come back here and say, it's not gonna work. I'm torn because I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And what I'm saying is, say we give them a motion to move forward to get all the answers, because that's all it is. It's not putting a shovel in the ground. It's not taking away the ball field. You know, she made a comment that in November they won't be able, no, that's not gonna happen. November, that field'll still be there. Yeah, it will be. But what I'm saying is, at that time, when all the answers of how the drainage is gonna work and what's gonna happen, and I think, and I know you say it's not, does DOT won't allow it? Maybe it would solve a little bit of it if we just appeal to DOT about it and maybe get a letter from them. So you know what I mean? And just ask. I mean, do you know what I mean, from DOT? That's all I would ask, you know? Appeal to DOT to say that, no, it's not gonna happen. Maybe to catch the guy on a Friday and he's in a good mood. I don't know. You know, it's just.
You know, we have to go forward. This allows us to bring it to DEM, to Kent County Water, again, and we have to do a lot of engineering work. It may come back, you'll never see us again.
John,
If this comes,
I hate to interrupt, but
okay,
the public hearing's closed.
Public hearing's closed, so we're talking about.
okay, I'm just answering the member's question, that's all.
So that's what I think, or in my opinion, is that all this has gotta go through that. It doesn't get them permits to put a shovel in the ground. It gets them back here with answers. It gets us back with a DOT letter saying, no way, you're not coming out to Queeset Ave. And then these people can battle it again, and we can pick out the technicalities and stuff, you know? I just, there's a lot of misnomer information here that I need more to make a decision. So this decision to move forward, that would be on my part, wouldn't be for them to put a shovel, it'd be to give us all the information.
Master plan, which means.
Yeah,
Then they
so
gotta
that
do the work. So
Jason and the rest of these people can understand,
Questions answered.
that's the way I feel.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
to follow up on that, everything you raised and everything that Josh is raising, those are the if, I'm not, if you approve, each one of those questions that each one of you have now, next time they hear, if at that point in time, they haven't satisfied you about the child with problems, they haven't satisfied you about the entrance and exit, you know, at that point in time, you're basing your decision on a factual statement. Right now, you have a concept that many people have raised very many, very valid issues. There are no answers to those issues. There will be no answers until the next hearing. At the next hearing, if the engineer can't satisfy the conditions about the clay or the water or the drainage, if the traffic engineer, if they come in with their own traffic engineer and he disputes that, at that point in time, these very questions that all of these people very legitimately have to be answered before you are allowed to say go forward.
Who pays for that traffic engineer?
Whoever hires them.
Would the neighborhood have to hire? So
Yes.
as a homeowner and a taxpayer, I would have to pay a portion to hire
But
a
the
traffic
public
engineer.
hearing was closed.
Public hearing is closed.
I'd say for the welfare of these people in the audience, it would be my opinion that I would move forward to get more factual data and details of all the questions they asked. And again, it does not mean the ball field goes away. And like the attorney said, they come back and they can't suffice those problems with the children and the spectrum. That's a big concern of mine. And they can't suffice those problems. Then they don't come back here. This project goes nowhere. But the woman that owns that field, she can do what she wants with it. And even though it breaks my heart to see it go, what can I do to stop her?
One last comment, Mr. Chairman, just, again, I don't know whether the public is aware of it or not, but everything that has been said tonight has been recorded, so that all of your questions, all of your concerns are not just the memory of these gentlemen and the young lady. They have been recorded. Any question that has been raised is on record for the developer to answer at the next hearing.
Yes.
If the board approves tonight.
When's the next hearing?
Well,
Let's-
it's gonna
let-
take them a long time.
Let's keep talking
Yeah.
over here, okay? And
Well,
try to ignore
Yeah, I
the
can't.
questions that come out of the audience. The
So-
public hearing's closed, this is between us. I
Yeah.
want to hear from Jessica and Joe and Tony. I want to know what you're thinking.
I echo the same sentiments. I mean, it's
Yeah.
difficult when you have a child who has special needs. I mean, I have a nephew with Down syndrome,
Yeah.
and I know he is difficult to handle, and I know when he gets triggered, it's hard.
Yeah.
So I guess my thing is, though, we can't get the answers for them until we move forward. So it's tough, and I echo the legal battle. Can we really even say no just because of emotion? I mean, as much as I would like to say, no, you can't go forward, I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, it's not an easy decision.
No, it is not an easy decision. But, so anyway, let's entertain a motion. Is there a motion to approve the master plan?
I entertain a motion. I move the motion to move the master plan to get more information
With all of the
based upon,
stipulations that are listed in the.
based upon everybody in the audience, the recorded
Yeah.
documentation of all the questions we have that need answers, and based upon a DOT involvement of another entranceway, and based upon the needs of the special needs children and the children of the neighborhood and the safety.
Including the stipulations in the.
Including all the
Yeah,
stipulations in the example.
stipulations here.
Okay.
How long, and, yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? No? Okay, so the motion is to grant the master plan approval with a whole series of stipulations that you raised, Josh, and all of the stipulations that are in the notice. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, anybody opposed? No, so the motion carries.
Can I ask the attorney, I know we're not in public session, can I ask the attorney, because it is, how long does the process typically take to go to master plan?
You go from master plan approval.
We're talking at least 9 months to a year before we're back.
9 months to a year?
Yeah.
To get all the answers? So, that's what it is. Nothing got approved here to go forward with it, it's getting you answers. Yes?
Yes, you can get.
Correct. Craig, how are you?